Okay, so you rejoin me halfway through chapter 25 after what was yesterday a very emotional edition of my reading. We've got the boys at the hospital at the moment, having been rescued and taken to hospital. But they want to get out of there pretty quick because Dad can't be found at the moment, and we don't want social services to take the children away, so they're looking to run off. Let's find out what happens to the boys. The doctor looks back in through the glass porthole in the door and smiles, and then moves on. Dad must still be at the art exhibition. Maybe Pearl is persuading Dad they're a perfect match, or maybe they're talking about what I thought I saw in the hallway the other night. I explained to Billy that we have to go on another Snoop secret mission, escaping the hospital without being seen. Billy says he doesn't have his balaclava, and I say it doesn't matter this time. Anyway, I don't have my sheep hat either. Staring through the glass porthole, I see a nurse at the far end of the corridor, but she's busy writing notes and looking at her computer. She hasn't been in our room yet, so she probably wouldn't recognise us if we slipped away and went back to the flat by ourselves. Even if Dad's not there, I can look after Billy until he turns up. I did it before when Billy was sick. I can do it again. I can make everything right. Slowly, I ease Billy's soggy shoes on, put a heavy blanket over his hospital gown, and I put my soggy clothes back on. They're freezing and make my teeth chatter. I tell Billy to be ready to run when I say so. First, I'm going to go out and check the coast is clear. Billy nods, and his jaw is set firm. He promises me he'll be the best spy I've ever known. Since I don't know any, the level isn't set that high. There is no sign of the doctor outside, so I grab Billy's hand and drag him, feet squelching, down the corridor, and then turn into another. There are signs for everything: cardiology, oncology, gastroenterology, haematology, and neurology, but no exit sign. I'm lost in the hospital maze, and I'm dragging around a boy who looks terrified but determined, since he's on a secret mission. A few people turn to stare at us, but I brazen it out. If you hold your head up and match their stare, they usually look away first. Hurrying down the corridors, I'm glaring at every person we meet, until I turn the next corner. Our doctor is in the distance, and talking to a police officer. We've been rumbled. The Snoop secret mission is going to be over before it began. The police officer is going to take us away if I don't think of something fast. I think of something fast. To start with, I pull Billy's blanket as far over his head and mine as I can and mutter to him that the blanket is the new balaclava. And then I open the first door we come to. It's a cleaner's closet, otherwise known as Snoop's new den, until the coast is clear again. It's not much of a den, and Billy's not impressed. It's full of mops and brushes, buckets and bottles of pine fresh disinfectant. We crouch down on the floor as I tell Billy we just need to be quiet for a little while, and when the doctor buzzes off, we can escape properly and go back to the flat. But Billy has other ideas and wants to know why we can't just go straight home. As I'm trying to tell Billy we wouldn't be good spies if we marched out and everyone saw us. A paper crane falls softly from the blanket. We stare at it. We stare at each other. Maybe it stuck to me when I fell in the water, I dropped the envelope of cranes into the ocean, so perhaps this one was tucked into my clothes. Thing is, my clothes are completely wet. And this is completely dry. Billy says he'll hold the crane while I tell him what happened to the beautiful creature, because I didn't finish the story. There's nothing much else to do in this cupboard, so I pull the blanket closer around us and say I'm going to tell him the ending. Close your eyes. This is what really happened to the two boys, and this is how they got through the storm and took the longest journey of their lives. I take a deep breath. The beautiful creature said it was time to go back to where they belonged. The storm was gone, and the seas calm once more. She had enjoyed swimming with them. She had drawn them pictures, sang to them, showed them sparkly fish, coral plants and starfish brighter than any stars in the sky. But she said now was the time they must leave. One boy asked how they could say goodbye when they loved her so much. She said, I drew my goodbyes, I planted them, I whispered them on the stars, I spelled them out in sparkly fish. One of the boys said he didn't realise they were goodbyes, so how could they count? She told them that each time she did something with them, they thought of her, and they smiled, and so each one counted. Each smile, each memory she would leave with them, but one boy was not satisfied. "Why?" asked Billy, his little body shivering until I snuggled up closer to him. He thought goodbye was more important than all the times that they spent together. He thought saying it would make a proper ending to everything. The beautiful creature shook her head. "Saying goodbye will not make you happy," she whispered. "What will make you happy is remembering the times we had and keeping me alive in your heart. There is no ending." Tears are prickling my eyes now. She was right. And at last the boy understood, because her words danced inside his heart, and he just knew. At that moment, the two boys held hands and were propelled back to the ocean's surface. The armchair was still waiting for them, and they climbed back on board, thinking of the beautiful creature who they'd shared happy times with. The storm had passed, and the travellers saw them now and waved because they weren't invisible anymore. Each and every person made it safely to shore and began happy lives in the new land. But the two boys never forgot the beautiful creature, and she never forgot them. "I wish I'd seen the beautiful creature when I fell in the water." "I think she saw you," I reply. "What was her name? You never told me." "It was Rebecca." "But that was Mummy's name." "I know." Chapter 26. After that, I think we must have fallen asleep. Next thing we know, we are being guided from the darkness of the cupboard and into the light of the corridor by the police officer. I don't know what time it is, but I do know that the lady police officer is now asking if I'm Beckett Rumsey and if this is my brother Billy. I nod. Billy nudges me and says spies don't give their real names. I tell him we don't need to be spies anymore because we've just been caught. "We thought you'd left the hospital and we'd lost you," says the police officer. I squint up at her, expecting her to tell us we're in terrible trouble and we will have to go into a home. "Dad didn't turn up for us," I whisper, clutching Billy to my chest. He's shaking again and his cold fingers are gripping my wrist like a vice. "I think he's with Pearl." "But not naked, man," says Billy, even though I try to shush him. "And this would be..." The officer flips open a notebook. "Pearl Kinnerton, formerly of 22 Cavalier Approach, and now residing at 40 Carlton Terrace." "Yes," I say meekly, "that's her. She's an artist." Clearly, I've given up on being a spy, and all the information is spilling from me like beans from an upturned tin. The officer looks at her notebook again and makes a small smacking noise with her lips. Bet she has information that Dad attacked Pearl. She's probably thinking he might attack us, and we'd be safer without him. I half expect a social worker to appear in a puff of smoke behind her and then whisk us away to an orphanage, like the ones in Victorian novels. "Let's get you double-checked by a doctor," says the police officer. "You've clearly been hiding in that cupboard for a little while. You've got strange marks on your cheeks." "Bristles," I say. "I'm not sure you're old enough to have bristles." The officer smiles at me, pleased she's made a joke. I smile back. Billy does too. I don't think he understands, though. He smiles a lot at daft things. Billy's hospital gown is filthy and covered in fluff, and we smell of pine disinfectant and salty seawater. The officer tightens the blanket around Billy, and he asks if she's going to be his new parent. She clears her throat. "I'm sure that would be very nice, but you've got your own father for that, Billy." "Dad?" I swallow. "Did she just say we've still got Dad? Are we not being taken away and put into care? Doesn't she know our dad was in prison for attacking his girlfriend? I bet it's on record. Surely she thinks we won't be safe with him." We trail after the police officer down the corridor, and I ask millions of questions, but the officer tells me to shush until we're settled in our room. "You're not being removed from the hospital until a lady comes to get you. I've just had confirmation. I've got her name here somewhere." The police officer looks at her notebook again. "Here it is. Cat. Catwoman, says Billy. Well, that's not... Cat gives us lasagna. Okay. And she does fancy orange chips too, Beckett said so. Okay. I think she gets the picture, Billy, I say. Well, this Catwoman, who sounds like a great cook, is on her way to pick you up. Apparently, she will take care of you until your father is finished. Sorry. Until your father is finished at the police station. The officer shows us back to our room. I blink. Until Dad is finished at the police station? Nothing is making sense. The officer asks us to sit on the bed, and she says that Dad was involved in an argument. My eyes start to fill up. Don't worry, says the police officer. We're just finishing talking to him and he'll be back with you again soon. The officer looks at her notebook again. Did he attack anyone? I can hardly ask the question, but I have to know. He was going to an art exhibition. Attack anyone? Not that I know of, says the officer, and I hope not. There was a little incident at the exhibition, an altercation. I want to ask what an altercation is, but the officer continues. All the paintings got ripped and destroyed, and someone called us out because there was a lot of shouting coming from the church hall. The officer closes her notebook again. Did the paintings of the naked man get ripped? Billy asks. His face is all scrunched up, like used tinfoil. I'm not thinking of naked man, though. An icy chill goes through me as my mind trots back to the moment when Pearl and Dad were in the hallway. I saw them arguing then, too. I asked the officer if it was Dad who destroyed the paintings. Was he the person shouting? The officer shakes her head and says all we need to know is that Dad is fine and will be released without any charge. Pearl, on the other hand... If I was writing up Snoop notes now, I would write suspect, Ms. Pearl Kinnerton. Motive, unsure. Could it be jealousy? Was Pearl so angry that Dad had a life before her with Mum? And did Pearl think he had another girlfriend after her, even though I texted to say Camille wasn't his girlfriend? Did she not believe the text? Opportunity. She was with Dad at the art exhibition. In fact, it was her art exhibition. Important things to note. Aggressive nature was seen by me in the hallway. Pearl had Dad by the wrist, and her face was twisted, and it was almost as if she was surrounded by a horrible black cloud of anger. I felt confused. Dad was trying to pull away, but her scarlet nails dug against his flesh, stopping him. The whole thing felt menacing and wrong and weird. My stomach flopped to the floor right there and then, and my mouth was as dry as the floor of a hamster's cage. It only lasted a second, but I know what I saw. Yes, I ignored it at first because I couldn't believe it. But now, I'm certain Pearl was attacking my dad, and not the other way round. The officer won't divulge any further information. All she says is that Dad will be with us shortly. That's it. She won't say how the altercation happened. Out of the blue, Billy whispers, I don't like Pearl anymore. She told me I'd killed my mummy. It made me sad. The officer stops and looks at him. I have to explain that Mummy died in childbirth, and I can see the officer visibly relaxing that there isn't another crime to deal with. She reminds us that we must never mess about at the harbour again. It's dangerous, she says, flicking her eyes towards Billy. He mentions Brian, and the officer asks if there was another person lost in the water. Her hand is already on the radio. No, says Billy. He was my snail, and it was very dark down there, and I didn't see any beautiful creatures, but Beckett says the beautiful creature saw me. And I saw Mum. She gave you the bubbles of life, I pointed out. Then I saw heaven, says Billy. If Billy doesn't stop talking soon, the police officer is going to take us away for being totally crazy. I laugh nervously and say Billy's being silly, but he insists he isn't. First of all, I saw the darkness, and then I saw heaven, he repeats. As I titter with fear, there's a small knock at the door. In walks Kat, and I'm so happy to see her. We both run to her and cover her in hugs, and she smells of wet grass and roses all rolled into one. She tells us she was so worried when she got a call from Dad, and he was in a police station, but he explained everything. He said the hospital had left him messages and she was to come and pick us up while he was finishing up at the station. The police officer smiles and says that the three of us can go home straight away. Oh, Catwoman, exclaims Billy after he's practically hugged the life out of her. You came for us. Excuse me. Cat stares at him. You came, says Billy nervously. You did come for us. No. What was the bit before that? Catwoman? She laughs for so long that tears run down her cheeks in tiny rivulets. Even the police officer looks amused. I repeat, Catwoman. And I look at her quizzically. I know it's a daft name, but she should blame her parents. At least I never laughed at it. Not to her face, anyway. The police officer eventually puts her notebook back in her pocket as Cat stops laughing long enough to be able to speak. It's not Catwoman, she says, swallowing back more laughter. It's Cat Womack. Cat, short for Catherine. I'm afraid I'm not even remotely like Catwoman, even though I wish I was. What gave you that idea? I thought it said that on your door label, I reply. I'm good with a pair of hairdressing scissors, but useless with a pen. My handwriting is terrible. Cat grins. Have you been calling me Catwoman all this time? Nope. As if? Billy laughs and says it was my fault for getting her name wrong. Cat tickles him in the ribs and says she's so glad to see he finds it funny. I love Cat for it. We went to Cat's flat so we could get cleaned up and get something to eat, and on the way Cat put on the radio and we all sang along to the songs. Cat made us a quality dinner at her flat, potato smiley faces, chicken goujons and corn on the cob drizzled with chili butter. Billy dribbled butter all over the carpet, but Dad didn't get angry. It was ace. Now we're picking up Dad, and he's still sitting waiting for us outside the police station. When we arrive, he says he was so worried about us and we're never to lean over the harbour again. If I lost you two, my life wouldn't be worth living, he says, grabbing us both into a massive hug. You're my everything. Dad asks why I didn't ring him before the hospital did when it happened, and I say my mobile fell in the water along with my paper cranes. When we all climb into Cat's car, Dad sighs and says, What a day it's been. I didn't mean it to turn out like that. I'm just glad that you two are okay. I say I'm just glad Dad is okay. When we get back to the flat to say our goodbyes to Cat, Dad asks Billy to go watch TV for a bit, which in my mind translates to, I want to talk to Beckett alone again. You know, don't you? Dad sighs, closing the kitchen door so Billy can't hear our conversation. I nod. I saw Pearl grab your wrist in the hallway. I felt funny inside because I thought she did it to hurt you. I just couldn't figure it out, Dad. I was confused. Why would Pearl want to do that? Dad fills the kettle and pulls out a chair and sits down. I was confused too, son. Pearl was the loveliest person, most of the time. I don't want to make you think she was all bad because nothing is ever black and white in this world. But Pearl did have a temper, and lots of little things would set her off. And it was as if a switch had been flicked. When that happened, she'd get so angry and it would spill out from destroying things in the house to attacking me. At times she'd hurt with words, and other times she'd lash out, scratch me with her nails, push me. It's wrong to hurt people, I whisper. Yes, says Dad. And I lied about everything because I felt awful about it. Whenever Pearl lashed out, she said it was my fault because I made her angry. Sometimes I wondered if she was right. Afterwards, she'd always say she was sorry that it happened, but I drove her to it and I had to forgive her. So I did. I forgave her over and over, but I hated how we couldn't talk about Mum. In the end, it felt like I was treading on eggshells, and a big bloke like me can't do that for long, because he'd only break them. Why didn't you leave her sooner? Because I thought I loved her, but she didn't love me, not really. You don't hurt people you love like that. I tried over and over to please her, but it was never going to work. In the end, the day we moved out, there was a massive argument. She was so angry, she destroyed her own self-portrait, the one over the mantelpiece. You two were in bed. I was glad you were asleep and didn't hear. After she'd gone storming off, I threw the portrait in the garden. I knew she'd come back after she cooled down, but I decided I needed to get out, get all of us out, and quick. I needed to leave her straight away, so I woke you both up, threw everything in boxes and us in the van. I'd already organised a flat for us to go to if we needed it. I left, and I didn't want to look back. You should have told us. My voice is soft like candy floss. I should have, replies Dad. But you've been through so much, I thought I'd make it an adventure, only it wasn't. I was a complete mess, and the more you asked about Pearl, the more I wondered if I'd made a mistake leaving her behind. When Pearl first rang, I was shocked. It was our fault. We went looking for her without telling you. Then we rang her from the flat. She must have seen a strange number she didn't recognise and rung back. Nothing is your fault. And when Pearl turned up again, I thought it might work out if we both tried. I thought this was the right thing to do because you both needed her too. But that night, after the party, she attacked me and then rang the police and said it was the other way around. I felt so lost. You weren't lost, Dad, because we were here. We were here with you. I know. I think you're right, Beckett. I wish I'd told you all this earlier, and maybe it would have worked out so much better. I just didn't think it was fair to worry you. I wanted to try and protect you both from all the bad things, like a good parent should. When you were little and worried about bogeymen in the cupboard, I was there for you. And I wanted to make the situation go away too. I wanted to make your lives perfect, but I couldn't. I don't want things to be perfect, I say, thinking of Mimi. I'm glad. Nothing is ever perfect. Maybe imperfect is perfect for us. From now on, things are going to be good. And now I've got someone to talk to when things get difficult. It will help. It was your Nana's idea. She phoned up one night and said I should talk to someone impartial. Camille! Yes, she was someone I don't know who would listen, explains Dad. I searched for places I could go to talk to people who would understand the situation and not judge me. I found Camille Ogden, as you say. I took down her number and arranged to meet her. After that, I felt strong enough to arrange going to Dovedale House, which was a centre where you can talk. I'm a terrible spy. I made everything worse by being nosy. Dad shakes his head and says he couldn't tell me who Camille Ogden was in front of Pearl because he wanted to protect me. And it was easier to say she was just a work acquaintance. And how are you a spy, exactly? Ignoring Dad's question, I continue. We saw Pearl with another man. Dad reaches his arm across the table and gives my hand a squeeze. He was naked, I explain. Dad shakes his head slowly and says, I saw the paintings of him before Pearl destroyed them. Pearl hated me talking to other women, but she did what she wanted most of the time. It doesn't surprise me that she got herself someone else immediately. Anyway, she's gone for good now. From today onwards, we're going to heal. Yes, we are, I whisper. None of this type of healing is in Marvin's medical manual, but that doesn't matter one bit, and I bite my lips as another thought comes into my head. I don't care one bit about saying goodbye to Pearl. It's the easiest thing I've ever done.